What's going on, everyone? So today we're going to be talking about the Druid. It's going to be another one of those live stream kind of like conversations that we had a little bit with a little bit of a breakdown on how the Druid plays mechanically in the game for new players to kind of jump in, get the nuts and bolts of the base class. We're also going to dive a little bit into the Circle of the Moon and the Circle of the Land, so that way we can get an idea of those basic Druid circles that come out with the player's handbook. Now, if you guys have any questions about Druids or anything else related to Dungeons & Dragons, tabletop role-playing, virtual tabletops as well, make sure you comments down there in the comment section. Also, come down to the live stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Twitch. Link for that is going to be down in the description below. Also, we will actually be running pretty soon on the Wednesday stream a game. Yes, we're finally going to be running a game on the live stream. So that's going to be on Wednesdays. It's going to start around 8 o'clock, but it's not going to happen until mid-August. We have a tentative start date. We got to do a little bit of the AV stuff, or the, how do you call it, the tech stuff, tech review, all that kind of jazz. It's going to take a little while, but we'll figure it out. But that's, you know, just a little bit of an announcement for the channel. But this video is on Druid. So actually, let's just jump over to, let's jump to that Druid discussion right now. We're going to jump in here, and so the first thing we're going to do is actually jump over to the computer, and let's talk about the Druid. So when we think about Druids, thanks for hosting me, ClamMQ Gaming. When we talk about Druids, obviously, if you've never played a Druid before, one of the big things that they're known for is their wild shape, which for some of us veteran players, we know that, but not everyone knows that necessarily. And wild shape is basically a method and way that this particular class is able to shapeshift into different animals and beasts and stuff like that to be able to have different effects. Druids are also typically of the forest. For the most part, they are, or some sort of wild, they're basically attuned to nature in some particular way, shape, or form. And that link to nature gives them their power and their kind of the ability to kind of control animals, the wilderness, and also just some really interesting arcane elemental forces. Their goals are really just to preserve the balance between life and death, and basically kind of like, you know, what do you give to nature, nature gives back to you, that whole kind of cycle of life, all that fun stuff that we see in all the cartoons and stuff like that. But when we're talking about making a Druid itself, it's a really fun class to kind of play because you have all these different abilities that not a lot of other classes get because of that wild shape. And what I mean by that is that you have basically a plethora of different animals and monsters and stuff like that that you can wild shape into pretty much whenever you want, given that you hit certain landmarks in your levels and stuff like that. So we are actually going to talk a little bit about everything as far as the base Druid is concerned, and we're going to get into some Circle of the Land, Circle of the Moon here today, just because those are the ones presented in the player's handbook, so we're just going to jump into those. Sometime in the future, we will talk Circle of Dreams and Circle of the Shepherd. We might jump into the Circle of Stars and Wildfire at some other point down the line, but for now, we're just going to talk about Land and Moon. As far as class users are concerned, we're getting a D8 hit die. We're not going to get into too much of this stuff, but we're going to have some armor proficiencies. We'll have some proficiencies in some weapons, typically the ones that aren't made out of metal. We got herbalism kit, skills to choose from that are very Druid-based, like survivals, your natures, your medicines. We're also going to start with equipment based on our background with like a wooden shield or any sort of wooden or whatever weapons you can come up with that would be like not made of metal, which you can still make a mace that's made out of wood or something like that. You'll find a way to kind of make it work. It's not like just because you have a longsword you can't have a longsword, but I usually, as you can see here, longswords, not really on the list there. Daggers are, but you can make a dagger out of wood, technically, so something to think about. I mean, it's not necessarily a requirement for that, but for specifically armor, it is. So Druids will not wear armor or use shields made of metal. So something to keep in mind as you're kind of moving forward. You're going to know Druidic, which is kind of like Thieves' Cant for your rogue, except for it's for the Druid. So Druids can leave hidden messages that they can leave for other Druids and stuff like that. Others can sponsor the presence of that message as well, but they can't actually necessarily decipher it without any sort of magics. Spellcasting, we're going to get spellcasting. There's going to be certain rules. We're going to be preparing and casting spells similarly to our clerics, where we're going to prepare spells from our entire spell list for the given adventuring day based on our wisdom modifier plus our druid level. So something to keep in mind that we can prepare a certain number of spells based on the spells of the level that we can cast, which we can see based on the spells, the spell slot table here, depending on what level we're at. So nothing too crazy, nothing too out of the ordinary compared to some of your other classes like the cleric and stuff like that, where they're a prep caster like the cleric is. As we kind of move on, we're going to get wild shape at level 2. Now there's going to be certain kind of stipulations on what kind of things you can wild shape into, but the basic rules are going to be right here. These are going to be different for our Circle of the Moon, and we'll get into that in a second. As we kind of keep moving forward, you can actually see, like I was going to say, at level 2, you're going to get your max CR of 1/4, no flying swim speed. Level 4, no flying speed. Level 8, you have no limitations except that the max CR is going to be max CR 1. One thing to keep in mind, your game statistics are going to be replaced by the statistics of the beast, but you're going to retain your alignment, personality, and your intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores. You're also going to retain all of your skill and proficiency bonuses in addition to the gaining those of the creature. So if the creature has the same proficiency as you and you have it as well, you're going to use the best one, which is going to be yours instead of the creature's. Depends on the circumstance, but you get the idea. Basically, you're not going to get nerfed in a way. Unlike when you do like a polymorph spell where you actually do get nerfed, with Wild Shape you don't. As you transform, you're assuming the beast's hit points and hit dice, and then when you run out of hit points, you will revert back to your normal form, or if you decide to drop it early, basically. For example, if you take 10 points of damage in animal form, you only have 1 hit point left, you revert, and then you take 9 damage. You get some little bit of overshot damage. As a result, if you take more damage than you have left in Wild Shape, it makes a lot of sense. You can't cast spells while in Wild Shape, but you can cast spells before Wild Shape that you can concentrate on. So, example, Call Lightning is a great one that a lot of people use. It's a concentration spell, and it lasts for 10 minutes. So basically, if you cast a spell, Call Lightning, and then you decide to Wild Shape right after that, totally fine. You're able to keep it up, and you can activate it as you're going. However, you cannot, you cannot then cast spells within your Wild Shape form itself. You have to do something like a concentration spell. As we kind of continue to move on, we're going to retain any benefits from any features of our class, race, or anything else. So if we have some rogue dips and stuff like that, I'm not saying that you necessarily will have that with your druid, but something to keep in mind. You're going to have them, but you're going to actually lose dark vision unless your new form or other special senses like tremor sense and stuff like that, unless your actual form already has that sense. So kind of makes sense. If you turn into something that doesn't have dark vision, you had dark vision, you're going to lose it because now you're shaped into a different animal. And then any equipment that you have, it either falls to the ground in the new space, or it is merged into your form, or it's worn by the creature you decide. It doesn't really matter. Your DM and you can kind of work together. Whether it's practical to wear the new piece of armor or not, depending on the creature's shape or size, doesn't change how it works. Like, the equipment can just merge into you. It's not really that big of a deal. So you don't have to worry about losing all your equipment because you decide to Wild Shape. Doesn't necessarily have to work that way. Level 2, you're going to pick your Druid Circle. Pretty much, that's it. Like I said, Circle of the Land and the Circle of the Moon are the big ones that are here in the Player's Handbook. You also get some other things that are going to come up at 2nd, 6th, 10th, and 14th level for that circle that we'll get into here in a second. As we kind of move on, we saw that the Wild Shape improves as we keep going. Level 4, we're gonna get challenge rating 1.5 or lower, and it can't have a flying speed, but it can actually swim now, so that's kind of cool. We're going to get our ability score improvements at 4, 8, 12, 16, 19, like we always do, or like we usually do, depending on the class. Fighters are a little bit different. And some of the other martial classes are a little bit different as well. We're going to continue to improve our Wild Shape as we keep going. We're going to get Timeless Body at level 18, so it's going to basically cause us to age slowly, kind of like our Monk. And then at level 18, we were going to be able to cast Druid spells in our Wild Shape. So much as we can perform the somatic and verbal components of the spell while in Beast Shape. But we are not able to provide material components. So basically, we can perform these somatic verbal components, but if we don't have the material, we can't perform the spell. And then Archdruid, you can Wild Shape as much as you want. And you can ignore the verbal somatic components of your Druid spells, etc., etc. You get the idea. Makes a lot of sense. Base Druid, not too bad. I mean, the only thing that's going to be really confusing is some of these special case examples, especially when it comes to talking about Call Lightning, how this stuff works with the hit dice, and then these specific game statistics are the ones that are usually the most confusing for a lot of new players. But in all honesty, most of it is your skill better than it. So you're going to keep your intelligence, wisdom, charisma. You're going to retain all your skill and saving throw proficiencies in addition to gain those of the creature. If you have the same proficiencies as each other, then you're going to use the one that's going to be higher, whether it's yours or the creature's. And if they have any legendary or lair actions, you're not going to be able to use them. So pretty much, you're going to maintain your normal self. You're just going to gain some physical characteristics of the creature as you're kind of moving forward. But if you have some ones that are better in your innate form, then you're going to gain those as well. All right, so let's talk Circle of the Land. Circle of the Land, one of the more complicated circles, mostly because you have to pick, and it's not totally complicated, you just have to pick a certain type of land that you're going to be the Circle of the Land of. So you're going to get a bonus cantrip at level 2, so just pick a new Druid cantrip. We're going to get this natural recovery, where we're going to be able to recover some of the magical energy by taking a short rest. We're going to actually choose to, any of the spell slots that we've actually expended, we can actually recover some equal to less than half our Druid level rounded up, and none of these slots can be higher 6 level. Basically, arcane recovery for your Druid here with the Circle of the Land. And then we're also going to get some spells depending on the circle that we take part in. So Arctic, we got some ones that are related to Arctic. We've got coast, desert, forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, underdark. You can peruse those at your leisure, but basically you're going to get spells related to the different lands that you're from. Level 6, Landstride. So we're going to be able to move through non-magical, difficult terrain. This is going to cost us no extra movement. We're also going to be able to pass through non-magical plants, and we're going to also be able to have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement, such as those created by the Entangle spell. So, not too crazy. Nature's Ward. We can't be turned or frightened by elementals or fae, and we're immune to poison and disease. Pretty easy. And then Nature's Sanctuary. Creature of the natural world, sense your connection to nature and become hesitant to attack you. Whenever a beast of plant attacks you, the creature must make a wisdom save, or they will have to attack a different target, or their attack automatically misses. On a successful phase save, the creature is going to be immune to this effect for 24 hours. So, nothing too crazy there. But you kind of get the idea. Circle of Land makes a lot of sense. You're going to have some more natural connections with beasts. You're going to get some really cool stuff related to land, like this Landstride. We're going to be able to move without any difficult terrain causing us any problems. We're going to be immune to poison disease. Makes sense, kind of, because we're a druid. I can always just say because we're a druid, but basically because we're living of the land and stuff like that, we'll actually have an idea of like what specific things to avoid, or our body is going to be more resilient to poisons and stuff like that. So it makes a little bit of sense. As we jump into Circle of the Moon, it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to get combat wild shape, so this is definitely the more combat-oriented wild shape class, not necessarily spellcasting-oriented class. So when we choose this at second level, we can actually wild shape as a bonus action instead of an action, which we saw way, way, way up here. Wild shape, you can use your action to magically assume the beast. Well, now Circle of the Moon, you can use a bonus action, so you could actually, in fact, cast Call Lightning and then switch to this right away, which is pretty cool. In addition, while you're in wild shape, you can use your bonus action to spend a spell slot to gain 1d8 hit points while you're in wild shape. Basically trying to keep yourself in wild shape as long as possible. You're going to have different circle forms. Basically, your wild shapes are going to be different. So at second level, you can actually use your wild shape to transform into a beast with a challenge rating as high as 1. You ignore the max CR column of the beast shapes table, but you still take on the limitations there. So instead of being CR 1/4, you can now change into creatures of CR 1. At 6th level, you can do it as high as your druid level divided by 3 rounded down, starting at 6th level. So to give you an idea, we'll go back up to class features, back down to this table. So when we're at 1st level, we're doing CR 1. When we get to 6th level, divided by 2 is going to be CR 2. So we're going to be CR 1 up through these, but then we're going to gain creatures with flying speed at level 4, but we're still going to be able to do CR 1. And then once we get up to level 6, we'll be able to the CR maximum will increase, and eventually at level 8 you'll have no limitations, which is really cool. As we continue to move on, it's really, really long. Divided by 3 on your druid level, not divided by 2. Primal Strike at level 6. We're also going to be able to have our beast strikes count as magical for the sake of coming over magical resistance. Circle forms, you are able to... Oh, that continues to... It's the same thing as it was up here. Get you to basically at 6th level to do transform into beast with challenge rating as high as your druid level divided by 3 rounded down. Kind of like what we said here on this part of circle forms. It's just repeated here. Elemental Wild Shape at 10th level, you can expend 2 uses of Wild Shape on the same turn to transform into an air, earth, fire, or water elemental. So that could be very useful for you, especially with some of the new Unearthed Arcana feats that came out doing bludgeoning or piercing damage. For example, with that earth elemental doing a lot of bludgeoning damage, it's going to be a really fun one to kind of grab the Crusher feat, just because it's going to kind of pair well together. So if you guys want any more advice about that, let me know, or throw some stuff down in the comment section, or come down to the live stream. I can answer some of your questions. And then finally, at level 14, we get 1,000 forms. Basically, you can cast Alter Self at will, which is really cool because you're going to be able to give yourself gills if you need them. You're going to be able to do a lot of cool things with Alter Self, which you can kind of see here. You can do aquatic adaptations. You can change your appearance. It's really cool the way this spell works, and you'll be able to cast it at will. So that basically, guys, is going to be a really quick and dirty breakdown of the Druid. I hope you guys found that helpful. And like I said, it's very interesting. It can be kind of complicated and overwhelming, but once you kind of get used to it and you kind of look into the nitty-gritty, level by level, it's not any more complicated than some of your other classes. So if you guys do have any questions, make sure you leave comments down in the comment section or hit me up in the live stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Twitch, which is what I'm on right now, talking about this at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, going until midnight. Link for that is going to be down in the description below of the YouTube video that's going to come out later on next week. So I hope you guys learned something, and until next time, happy gaming.